Okay, now that we've acquired motion data, we want to take a look at their suite of tools for data management and analyzation. I'm here now with Mark Vowell. He's an applications engineer for RDI. So we're going to run through a little bit of the software, some highlights of how it works, the ease of use, and how simple it is to identify issues when you're out on the floor. Okay, so starting with Motion Explorer, this is their data management piece of all of their software. This is where you'll store your files. You can go to Motion Amplification, which is your analysis piece, or you can jump to Motion Studios, which allows you to set up small video snippets and things like that to communicate the importance and the value of the findings that you have to your management staff. So Mark, I know when working with data hierarchy is highly important. What do you feel are some of the best practices when setting up your structure for your hierarchy to keep you organized?
So some of the best practices of Motion Explorer is to create a hierarchical structure that makes sense. You know, what facility are you in? What building? What asset are you in? And finally, where are your recordings going to be stored in this hierarchy? So the use of Motion Explorer basically can substitute the use of having to use Windows Explorer, which can get a bit complex. The beauty of Motion Explorer is it will tell you exactly where your recordings are being stored. It will also give you a thumbnail of each recording here, so you know exactly what you're referencing. The other aspect about Motion Explorer that's really nice is that as you go into the amplification module, create MP4s, create additional files, maybe screenshots, etc. All of that information will be stored right here within Motion Explorer, so you can have immediate access to it. And finally, the Motion Studio that you had mentioned, what you'll find in that application is that it also uses these, what we call collection levels, to give you immediate access to all of the MP4 files that you have already stored. And so it retains that tree structure throughout the different applications.
Okay, Mark, thanks for that. We appreciate it. So once you have all of your hierarchy set up, the next thing is to get into kind of the bread and butter of this whole suite of tools, and that's the Motion Amplification module. The Motion Amplification module is where you do your analysis, create your MP4s. You can do different videos of different things. You could have multiple issues on the same machine. You could highlight one and create a video for that, so there's a lot of things that you could do with that. So what you do is when you're in Motion Explorer, you'll click on the file that you're wanting to bring up in the Motion Amplification software, and then you'll click Motion Amplification icon at the top.
Correct.
All right, so now what we'll do is we'll click on the Motion Amplification icon to bring up the Motion Amplification software. Okay, so you'll see this first recording that we took out in the field. It brings that up. It's fairly self-explanatory with the icons, you know, the zooming in, the zooming out. You can move things, pin things. You can play with it a lot. Here we talked about before is adjusting, you know, frequencies and those types of things and frames per second to see motion. But Mark, I know there's a lot of things that you can do if I'm analyzing a piece of equipment like this. For example, if I want to check displacement of, say, you know, the bottom frame of this compressor, how would I go about doing that in this software?
Okay. So maybe real quickly, I'll just show you that to initiate playback of the recording that we collected with a little bit of amplification. This is what the compressor movement appears to be. And we can speed that up with this slider. We can adjust the amount of amplification with this slider. And finally, we can loop our playback down here. So back to your question, how would I go about measuring or quantifying the amount of displacement of that compressor. To do that, what we have to do is create what we call an ROI, or a region of interest. So I'll simply draw a small ROI here on the corner, and it will quickly calculate for me the waveform and spectrum within that ROI. So there's my vibration data based on the content of that small ROI.
And what can I do with this data once I get this pulled up? What is this telling me?
Well, what this is telling us, we notice we have an X and a Y. So if I look at our waveform data, you can see that in the X direction, which is left to right, Y direction up and down, you can see that we have about 6.2 peak-to-peak movement in the X direction. We have about a bit over 2.5 in the Y direction. We also have frequency content of those waveforms displayed here in spectral data. We can take our cursor to different peaks. We can instigate harmonic content, as most vibration softwares do. And we can also, if I can back this off, we can actually watch the movement along with the waveform as it tracks. Let me slow it down just a little bit. So you can see very clearly as you trace the the X direction here, that is your left and right movement. You can clearly see the movement of the compressor. This X waveform essentially quantifying that amount of movement. And that amount of movement, as you see here in our waveform, is irregardless of the amount of amplification. So if we ramp up our amplification visually, we're not impacting the actual movement, which again is around 6.2 mils of movement.
Okay, so that's awesome. So really what that's telling us then is your X peak displacement from left to right is greater than it is up and down on the Y, right?
Absolutely.
And of course, this compressor, it's fairly common sense if you look at it as a reciprocation in it moving back and forth. So therefore, why the displacement is more going this way. But if it was a different piece of equipment or things are guarded and harder to see, at least you still have an idea by seeing the two axes where the majority of your movement's coming from. So it gives you an idea of where you might need to look or dig into a little deeper to see where the root of this problem is. All right, so I know there's another great technique that is utilized with this software, and that's the filtering technique. If you want to, if you think of frequencies, say 1 through 60 hertz, this thing is picking up every one of those frequencies along the line. But if you want to filter it to a specific frequency so it only focuses on that piece of equipment, for example, the motor we know is at 60 hertz. If we want to filter everything out around it and just focus on the motor, we can do what's called filtering. What are some of the highlights of filtering, Mark? And can you show us an example here?
Sure. So filtering is, like you mentioned, Joe, is a very good way to isolate certain frequencies and therefore certain movements visually. So for example, I'm going to concentrate on this frequency here, which I happen to know is the frequency of the compressor itself. So if I highlight that frequency, and it doesn't matter if you're in the X or Y direction, what I can do is filter. This happens to be about 6 hertz. So I'm going to retain a 6 hertz and filter out everything else. So rather than having a 0 to 60 hertz influenced video recording, it can get a little bit messy due to all the different frequencies competing. You'll see how a filtered recording looks much cleaner and only shows you the movement at that frequency.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome.
So this is the compressor and motor and everything in the video moving only at the 6 hertz frequency.
Awesome.
The other thing you'll notice about filtered recordings is that you can easily retain the quality of the image at higher amplifications because you only have one frequency of interest, so you don't have all those other frequencies that are competing with the contrast, with the quality of the video.
Okay, awesome. So is there anything else, some tips or tricks or anything that you like to share with us when using the software?
Well, one of the things that we like to tout at RDI is that rather than explain potential vibration problems with graphs, spectral waveform data that oftentimes folks are not real comfortable with, what we like to present as our sort of report format is an MP4, or an actual video. So in doing so, what we offer is the ability to first add different types of what we call annotations to the image that you're currently seeing. So for example, we could add a plot annotation, which would show you, for example, spectral data coming from that ROI.
Right, awesome.
We can add other annotations that would highlight certain aspects of the image that you think are important to communicate. Shapes like rectangles, circles, text, actual words that might point to certain things. But once we have created the annotations that we feel are necessary to communicate, we have the ability to easily, with a push of a button, create an MP4. I'll do that now. We'll offer that there is an annotation. For example, your waveform annotation has the ability to track. You have a track playback, so that gives you the ability, you can see in the waveform.
Okay.
So there's some dynamic updates
awesome.
there within the annotation.
Right, that's great. And this is important too, because communication for the value of things is very important, especially when it comes to these tools. You'll want to create different sets of videos for different people, right? For example, if you're a tech and you're maintenance manager, you want to create this video highlighting where the issue is and why it needs to be fixed. If you're a maintenance manager, you might create a different video, and your text might be, this issue last time cost us $22,000, right? And that's all you have to say. We need to fix it to save $22,000, and just have it in text right here on this video, and just play it in a meeting, and let the video, the tools, and the application sell themselves, right? So it's really easy to communicate, versus if I tried to slap a graph on a table in the middle of a meeting and you say, you see those peaks and valleys? That cost us $22,000 last time, right? People aren't going to be able to relate the cost associated with an issue like that to actually seeing it live. And so it kind of helps drive that point home and sell the value of the system itself. So, okay, so that's motion amplification. Now we want to go on to Motion Studio. This is where you can create more of these types of reporting, which is basically video for them, MP4s, to communicate with others. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Motion Studio. Motion Studio is where you can basically edit, crop, do other things to prepare videos and things like that. So in order to get to their studio, you'll click on the new movie project icon at the top of the screen, and this will bring up all of your recordings that are available to you where you are currently in the hierarchy.
Correct.
And so from there, kind of what's some of the value, Mark, of being able to utilize this tool here?
Well, what this tool allows us to do is take all of the different videos that we created in motion amplification, and here are 3 examples of them. And by the way, these are the 3 videos I'm referring to in Motion Explorer. So as we mentioned earlier, everything that you do is stored and shown to you right here, so you have everything that you need at your fingertips. So we have, for example, our initial video that we created from our compressor. We can drop that into our workspace. We can then, for example, add a title. Maybe we decided that we should have had a title up at the very beginning of our project, so we can move that over. We can then go on to add our second video, which might be a more a video that includes more annotations, more detail. It could be a closer shot that we had recorded. We can add then another title. And then finally, maybe we could add our final video here to sort of round out the story that we're trying to tell through these different slides and these different videos. So once you have your content in this workspace, then it's a simple matter of defining the text that you want your title slides to have. You can edit, for example, your videos. To some extent, you can reduce the amount of time that from their original time, so you can make it a leaner or quicker, or that type of thing.
Right.
And then you can add even other videos or photographs from anywhere on your computer that you have access to. So if you want to put in your own digital content, you could do that here as well.
Right.
And finally, when you have all the content strung together as you desire, you simply go to File, Save Movie, and it creates another MP4 that consists of all of the content we have here.
Right, so this is great. So the way I could see this being used for me, and the way that I've always done things, is I like to show the value of all my findings and what it costs relate to the company, and how much I save them and stuff. So what I would probably do with something like this, just to give you guys ideas, is every month I would assemble a movie of all my findings and maybe what the value is back to the company based on that finding. Did we fix it? Those types of things, right? So say it's a vacuum pump that we see an issue with. Last time we had that issue, it cost us $10,000. In this title slide, I would just put, we resolved the issue, and this is what we saved the company, that type of thing. And so you can just go through each one of your findings, listing all the value that you've brought back to the company by utilizing this technology. And then every month you send it to them and say, hey, look what we did this month, right? And I would create a monthly report where I would send this to the finance guy, the plant manager, and anybody else who will listen to get the message out of all the great things we're doing. One of the hardest things I find in a maintenance department or in a reliability department is their ability to give themselves credit. And so give yourselves the credit for the work that you do. Don't just say, hey, I found something. It's find it, resolve it, and what's the value back to the company. And this is a very simple way to really empirically show them everything that you've done with this tool. And so this is great. So once I get done, it creates a new movie, and then it drops it back into the hierarchy.
Absolutely. It would drop it right back in here as a larger MP4.
Awesome.
And you could simply go to that MP4, let's say here, and it will take you to Windows Explorer, and there's the file that, for example, you would need to email to whomever.
Awesome. And so does this compress them so that you can email them, or are there some files you create that could be 20 gigabytes or something? And
yeah, we do have the ability to, we can come down, reduce the size. So we have ways of controlling the ultimate size of the MP4, because they can get quite large.
Right, for sure. But if you're editing your videos down to take a couple seconds snippet and utilizing some of the technologies that you have built within this software, I think you can keep those down to a minimum and make sure that they're easy to email. But yeah, this is phenomenal. I mean, the ease of use here and the ability for me to show the value, right? I pay a certain dollar amount for this tool, and every month I'm returning ROI with the use of this tool. And I want to show the company, right? I spent X amount of dollars buying this tool. I asked you to invest in my program. This is what I'm giving back to you, right? Every month it's tenfold ROI or whatever based on the findings. So this is phenomenal. It's a great way to communicate. for sure. So are there any other highlights, anything else you'd like to discuss about any of these software packages that you guys have that we might have missed?
Well, we have lots of detailed features that we didn't take time to go into. I'll mention a few. For example, we have a color map that allows you to instantly see color that represents where the highest vibration or movement might be prior to collecting. So we've added a lot of features recently, and we continue to develop features that help you along the journey of collecting the best data you can, the shortest amount of time. Also applications like within motion amplification that allow you to do different types of filtering other than the one that we showed, that let you get you know, the best quality of your video that you possibly can.
Right, and so I think, you know, it goes without saying, this was a very high level, very basic, just understanding of its ease of use and the things it can do. This thing is packed with so many other things that you can utilize. This isn't one of those videos where we're doing a training per se of all the details of analysis and things that you can do with this. We just want to show its ease of use and its high level. So Mark, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope everybody gets a value out of this, and we thank RDI for everything that you've done for us here today.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, if you would like your product reviewed by Reliability Expo, contact us at ask@reliabilityx.com. We'll set up a time where we can either come onto your site, or you can ship us your product or give us access to your software, and we can do a product review for your organization as well. Contact us at ask@reliabilityx.com.